gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, back with you all again, once again rather, for episode number 187 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is February 3rd, 2021. We'll be covering the dates of February 3rd to February 9th this week. And this is our 324th day living under COVID-19 restrictions. Looks like we'll make it to a year. Well, first of all, a big thank you to everyone who attended the Fantastic History Quest last Saturday. If you didn't attend, you missed a good one. Questions were a little bit harder this time, but we did have a winner. And scoring was a little bit different, so check it out. We're gonna do another one probably in a couple weeks. Keep your eyes on this vlog, as well as our Facebook page, Emperor Norton's Fantastic San Francisco Time Machine, to learn more about that. It's a lot of fun. Let's begin with our national days, as we generally do. The third today is National Carrot Cake Day. That is one of our favorites, yes indeed. And it is also Homemade Soup Day tomorrow, so you can have some soup after your cake. Life's short, eat dessert first, yes. By the way, if you want our recipe for cream of mushroom French onion soup, a concoction of our own, please send an email to emperornortontour@gmail.com and we'll send you the recipe. It's a good soup, especially on a cold day like this. The fifth is Work Naked Day. Oh dear. We need to have a talk with the Imperial Tailor. Oh, that's much better. The sixth is Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. Sure, why not? The seventh is National Fettuccine Alfredo Day. The eighth is Kite Flying Day, so go fly a kite. And the ninth is National Bagels and Lox Day. Yes, indeed. Well, let's move on to our Florida Man segment. Oh, we've got 3 today. All good ones. When aren't they? Starting with the third, quote, "You gotta smoke a bowl with me, please," unquote. Florida man invites police to smoke pot while showing off his marijuana plant. That's some smarts. The sixth, Florida man tries to run over son who wouldn't take bath, deputies say. That's a bit extreme. And the eighth, Florida man arrested after hitting girlfriend in face with burrito. I wonder how the burritos are in Florida. Well, for our San Francisco stories today, we have 2. We'll turn to the wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco, by John Ralston, because our first story comes from, if we can get to the right page here, yes indeed, February 3rd, 1918, Sonny Jim Rolfe drives the first streetcar through the Twin Peaks Tunnel. Picturesque as San Francisco's hills are, they have been a barrier to settlement. Twin Peaks, rising 900 feet above Market Street, effectively cut off southwestern San Francisco from downtown. In 1913, Byron Arnold, a Chicago consulting engineer hired by the city, submitted a master plan for expanding public transportation. Arnold, along with engineer Herman Schussler, is one of the most significant figures in San Francisco's development and one of the least known today. His plan included all streetcar lines incorporated into the municipal railway. Arnold's tunnel under Twin Peaks began at Market Street at Castro and ended what is now West Portal Avenue with stations at Eureka Street, now closed, but you can still see the remnants of it, and by Laguna Honda Hospital, Forest Hill Station. Total length, including approaches, was 12,000 feet. Construction began on November 30th, 1914, and cost $4.25 million, almost double the original estimate. What else is new? Paid mostly by an assessment district of about 4,000 acres. At 3:30 p.m. on February 3rd, 1918, Mayor James Rolfe Jr., Sonny Jim, wearing a motorman's cap, took the controls of the first K-Line streetcar to pass through the Twin Peaks Tunnel. Sonny Jim had dropped the first nickel into the fare box of a Geary Street A-line in 1912, inaugurating the municipal railway, had presided at the inauguration of other lines, and in 1928 would drive the first Judah car through the Sunset Tunnel. Streetcar transportation opened up whole new areas to development. Upscale St. Francis Wood, Forest Hills, and Parkside and Ingleside neighborhoods. The San Francisco Bulletin reported autos were on hand to carry all who desired it to see the residence districts made accessible by the tunnel line. They toured Ingleside and St. Francis Wood free of cost. Among thousands present, there were many expressions of belief that the opening of so fair a territory would be wonderful as contributing to the growth of the city. And indeed it did. The whole west side got developed after that. Our second story today is from February 5th, 1887, a record snowfall. The heaviest snowfall in San Francisco's history dumped 4 inches on downtown and up to 11 inches in higher elevations. The February 6th editorial page of the Morning Call, under the head "A Snowstorm," commented, "For the 5th time in 40 years, San Francisco has been visited by a snowstorm. Not a little weakling, such as one might suppose would venture to creep in between the rifts of our glorious climate, but a real, genuine, able-bodied, back-action, double-headed snowstorm of the Sierra Nevada variety." The astonished city awoke yesterday morning to find itself completely enveloped in a mantle of snow. This is the way it happened. A cold wave started from British Columbia to cross the continent and, dipping just a trifle low, struck one of the tall peaks of the Northern California mountains, Mount Shasta probably, and rebounding from the contact fell broken and shattered upon the peninsula of San Francisco. Of course, this was no time to squeeze the cold out and throw the snow into the ocean, and before the astonished climate had time to shake itself together and concert means of self-defense, the white man had spread out over the wide reach of sand and enveloped in its embrace the paralyzed city. Of course, accidents will happen to the best regulated climates. We consider this deluge of snow simply a casualty. But fortunately, our glorious climate, which was for a moment paralyzed by this daring invasion of the frigid elements, has rallied with splendid gallantry, and the snow is already fast disappearing. It is in full retreat, and like a haughty conqueror, our beautiful climate is relegating the frosty invader to the sewers and ditches of the city. To an Eastern or Midwesterner, 4 inches of snow is nothing, and the fuss seems comical, but because of the marine influence on San Francisco, snow is extremely rare. And this is true. It has snowed only a few times. I believe the last time was in 1976, but there might have been another time in the 90s. Usually it's just a light dust when it happens and melts immediately, but that was quite a snowstorm, apparently. Well, let's move on to our other histories for today. And we'll start with the third. 1815, the world's first commercial cheese factory is established in Switzerland. Well, it would have been earlier than that, but there you go. 1863, Samuel Clemens first uses the pen name Mark Twain in a Virginia City newspaper, the Territorial Enterprise. By the way, hats off to Hal Holbrook, who played Mark Twain so wonderfully all those years, although we shall have a little problem with Mr. Clemens and our depiction in Huckleberry Finn. Don't get us started. 1882, circus owner P.T. Barnum buys his world-famous elephant Jumbo, and that's where the word jumbo actually comes from. 1916, Tristan Tzara publishes the Dada Manifesto in Zurich, Switzerland. So happy 205th birthday to Dada. How does one properly celebrate that? I have a lobster to walk. 1953, this is a little obscure. J. Fred Muggs, a chimpanzee, becomes a regular on NBC's Today Show. Yes, it actually happened. 1959, the day the music died. A plane crash kills musicians Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. Richardson, aka the Big Bopper, near Clear Lake, Iowa. 1967, Purple Haze is recorded by Jimi Hendrix. 1979, YMCA by the Village People peaks at number 2 on the singles chart. I still would like to get an answer as to how that song became a popular thing to play at weddings. Listen to the lyrics. And if you don't know what that song's really about, well, email me, I'll tell you. 2020, the cruise ship Diamond Princess with 3,700 passengers quarantined in Yokohama Port, Japan after cases of COVID-19 are found on board. Now, we know someone who was on that ship. In fact, he is, I'm the other Emperor Norton. He's the original. He is the Clamper's Emperor Norton, although we share duties. Rick Saber, Captain Crunch sometimes known as. And he was stuck on the ship for 2 weeks and then was quarantined in, I believe, Austin, Texas. I know it was somewhere in Texas for another 2 weeks. What an ordeal. Let's move on to the fourth now, 1789. The first U.S. Electoral College chooses George Washington as president and John Adams as vice president. 1861, the Confederate Constitutional Convention meets for the first time. Jefferson Davis is elected president of the Confederacy. 1949, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin meet at Yalta in the Crimea to discuss the final phase of World War II. 1972, Senator Strom Thurmond suggests John Lennon be deported. 1974, Randolph Hearst's 19-year-old daughter, Patty Hearst, is kidnapped from her apartment in Berkeley, California, by the Symbionese Liberation Army. Well, there's a lot more of that story, which will unfold over the next few days. 1980, Studio 54 holds its grand closing party on its last night in business. 2004, Mark Zuckerberg launches Facebook from his Harvard dormitory room. So this is the birthday of Facebook. Happy birthday. Moving on to the 5th, 1870, the first motion picture shown to a theater audience. That was in Philadelphia. 1919, Hollywood film studio United Artists is founded by Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith. 1936, Modern Times, a silent film directed, written by, and starring Charlie Chaplin, is released. Great film. 1981, the largest Jell-O ever made, 9,246 gallons of watermelon flavor, is made in Brisbane, Australia. Now, there's a record that needs to be broken. 1997, O.J. Simpson is found liable in the deaths of Ron Goldman and Nicole Simpson in a civil court action. 2020, the U.S. Senate votes to acquit President Donald Trump 52-48 on charges of abuse of power and 53-47 on obstruction of Congress. Moving on to the 6th, 1843, the first minstrel show in the United States, the Virginia Minstrels, opens the Bowery Amphitheater in New York City. 1869, Harper's Weekly publishes the first picture of Uncle Sam with chin whiskers. 1921, back to Chaplin again, The Kid. Silent film starring Charlie Chaplin and Jackie Coogan is released. And of course, Jackie Coogan would go on to play Uncle Fester on The Addams Family. He was great. 1943, Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes, debuts on radio's Your Hit Parade. 1948, KNXT, now KCBS, TV Channel 2 in Los Angeles, has its first broadcast. 1852, Queen Elizabeth II succeeds George VI to the British throne and proclaimed Queen of the United Kingdom and the other Commonwealth realms, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Hats off to Queen Elizabeth II. 1974, the U.S. House of Representatives begins determining grounds for impeachment of President Richard Nixon. 1980, John Wayne Gacy goes on trial for the murder of 33 young men in Cook County, Illinois. 1990, Steve Beers of Wales recites the entire lyrics of Queen's album A Night at the Opera in 9 minutes 58.44 seconds. Backwards. Here's an interesting one. 2020, date of the first COVID-19 related death in the U.S., confirmed by the CDC on the 21st. We're at over, I believe, 450,000 now. Let's move on to the 7th, 1812. 8.2 earthquake shakes New Madrid, Missouri, one of the biggest ever in the United States. in the Midwest. People don't know that generally. 1845, the Portland vase, thought to date to the 1st century BC, is shattered into more than 80 pieces by a drunken visitor to the British Museum. 1914, Charlie Chaplin again debuts as the silent film character The Tramp in Kid Auto Races at Venice. It's on YouTube. Check it out. 1964, the Beatles land at New York's JFK Airport for their first U.S. tour. 1973, Iggy Pop and the Stooges released their 3rd album, Raw Power, a great, great record. 1974, Mel Brooks' film Blazing Saddles opens in movie theaters starring Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder. That film could not get made today. No way. 1974, I told you we'd come back to this. The Symbionese Liberation Army claim responsibility for the kidnapping of Patty Hearst. Moving on to the 8th. 1587, Mary Queen of Scots is beheaded at age 44 after being convicted of plotting to assassinate Queen Elizabeth I in the Babington plot. Things happen. 1883, Louis Waterman begins experiment to invent the fountain pen. This is a Waterman fountain pen, our favorite brand. 1910, the Boy Scouts of America is incorporated by William D. Boyce. 1915, The Birth of a Nation, the first 12-reel film in America, directed by D.W. Griffith, starring Lillian Gish and Mae Marsh, opens at Clunes Auditorium in Los Angeles. 1925, George S. Kaufman and Irving Berlin's Marx Brothers musical The Coconuts premieres in New York City. Wyandotte. 1965, President Johnson deploys the first U.S. combat troops to South Vietnam, with 3,500 Marines sent to protect a key U.S. airbase near Da Nang. Moving on to the 9th, 1895, volleyball is invented by W.G. Morgan in Massachusetts. 1962, Jamaica signs agreement to become independent. 1964, the first appearance of the Beatles on The Ed Sullivan Show draws 73.7 million viewers. 1969, the first flight of the Boeing 747 jet. In 1971, probably the first gay-themed TV episode, All in the Family, had one on February 9, 1971. Let us now move on to our births for today, and we have a lot. Let's start with the 3rd. 1811, Horace Greeley, American founder and editor of the New York Tribune. Go West, young man, was his quote. 1874, rather. Gertrude Stein, author, autobiography of Alice B. Toklas, among things. A rose is a rose is a rose. 1895, Norman Rockwell, the American artist illustrator, did covers for the Saturday Evening Post, among things. 1920, Henry Heimlich, surgeon and inventor of the Heimlich maneuver. 1926, Shelley Berman, comedian, passed away recently. 1927, Kenneth Anger, American underground filmmaker and author of Hollywood Babylon. 1956, Nathan Lane, wonderful film and Broadway star. Let's move on to the 4th, 1819, Emperor Norton. Hey, that's me! Hey, it's my birthday tomorrow! Yay, happy birthday to me! So don't forget to celebrate that. 1902, the aviator Charles Lindbergh. 1913, Rosa Parks, American civil rights activist who refused to give up her seat to a white passenger. 1921, Betty Friedan, American feminist and writer. 1940, George Romero, American-Canadian director, Night of the Living Dead. 1947, James Danforth Dan Quayle, former vice president, couldn't spell the word potato. 1948, Alice Cooper, real name Vincent Furnier. Let's move on to the 5th now. 1900, Adlai Stevenson II, American politician, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, governor of Illinois, and twice presidential candidate, lost both times. Would have made a great president, though. 1906, actor John Carradine, 1907, industrialist Norton Simon. His legacy is the Norton Simon Museum in Manhattan. 1908, Peg Entwistle, who jumped off the Hollywood sign as a suicide. 1914, the wonderful writer William S. Burroughs wrote Naked Lunch, and that's where the band Steely Dan gets its name from. Look it up, I can't tell you, on a family vlog. Yes. 1919, actor Red Buttons. 1941, Stephen J. Cannell, American TV producer, The Rockford File, 21 Jump Street, and of course, The A-Team, I Pity the Fool. 1943, Nolan Bushnell, the inventor of the Pong game, founded Atari. 1948, the actor, improvisationist, I think that's the right term, Christopher Guest, he was on Saturday Night Live, This is Spinal Tap, A Mighty Wind, Best in Show, all those great, great movies. Hilarious guy. Moving on to the 6th, 1756, Aaron Burr, the 3rd U.S. president who killed Alexander Hamilton in a pistol duel. 1895, arguably the greatest baseball player of all time, Babe Ruth. 1911, Ronald Reagan, 40th U.S. president, also the star of Bedtime for Bonzo. 1912, Eva Braun, the German mistress and wife of Adolf Hitler. 1917, Zsa Zsa Gabor, the last one standing, darling. 1931, Rip Torn. 1931 as well, Mamie Van Doren. 1932, director Francois Truffaut. 1940, Tom Brokaw, the newscaster. 1943, Fabian. 1945, Bob Marley, the great reggae musician, Yaman. 1950, Natalie Cole, the great singer and daughter of Nat King Cole. Moving on to the 7th now. 1812, Charles Dickens, novelist, Oliver Twist, Tale of Two Cities. 1867, another writer, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. 1908, Buster Crabbe, American swimmer, but also Tarzan. Born in Oakland. 1962, Garth Brooks, who was wonderful at the inauguration. Also 1962, Eddie Izzard, British actor and comedian. 1978, Ashton Kutcher, an actor known for That 70s Show and the greatest movie of all time, Dude, Where's My Car? Moving on to the 8th, 1820, William Tecumseh Sherman, American Major General in the Union Army, marched the sea, burning Atlanta. But he was also president of the Bank of Lucas Turner and Company here in San Francisco. And the building where that bank was still stands at the corner of Jackson and Montgomery. And he was responsible for the liquidation of our assets, but we won't hold that against him. 1928, Jules Verne, father of science fiction, wrote Around the World in 80 Days. We make a small cameo in the earlier film adaptation of that. 1878, Martin Buber, Austrian-Israeli dialogue philosopher and theologist. 1921, actor Lana Turner. 1922, Audrey Meadows, who of course played Alice on The Honeymooners, one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons. 2 astronauts are on the moon. They see someone lying face down in the lunar soil. One turns to the other and says, "Oh my God, it's Alice Cramden, to the moon!" 1925, Jack Lemmon, the great actor, has one of the best tombstones in the world. It simply says, Jack Lemmon in... That's it. Speaking of great actors, one who died way too soon, 1931, James Dean. 1932, John Williams, a composer, responsible for some of the most recognizable film scores. Like Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 1968, Gary Coleman. 1974, Seth Green, American actor, producer, hilarious person. Moving on to the 9th, 1773, William Henry Harrison, 9th President of the United States. 1891, the actor Ronald Colman. 1909, Carmen Miranda. She was known for the Tootsie Fruitsy Act. 1909 as well, Dean Rusk, former U.S. Secretary of State during the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. 1928, Frank Franzetta, American illustrator who worked on numerous comic book and paperback covers. Great illustrator, very influential. 1942, the wonderful singer-songwriter Carole King. 1943, Joe Pesci, wonderful actor. Also an actor, 1943, Squire Friedel, born in Oakland. Kind of obscure, but I did an apprenticeship at a South Coast Repertory Theater in Southern California, and he did some work there and did a lot of commercial work in the 70s and 80s. 1944, author Alice Walker, The Color Purple. 1949, Judith Light, who's the boss, but she was wonderful in the series Transparent, and she's also in the series The Candidate, I think it's called, The Politician. It's on Netflix, I can't remember. Bette Midler's great in it too. 1955, Jim J. Bullock, who played Monroe on Too Close for Comfort, and also had a show at one point with Tammy Faye Baker. It was a lot of fun. And 1981, John Walker Lind, the American Taliban fighter. I think he grew up in Marin County, if I remember right. Well, let's move on to our deaths for today. Starting with the 3rd, 1468, Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the movable printing press, movable type printing press. 1924, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th U.S. president. 1959, as we said earlier, Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Ritchie Valens died in that plane crash the day the music died. 1961, Anna May Wong, a first Chinese-American movie star. 1989, John Cassavetes, film director and screenwriter. 1991, Nancy Culp played Miss Jane on the Beverly Hillbillies. 1996, well, here she is again, Audrey Meadows. So she died pretty close to her birthday. 2012, actor Ben Gazzara. Moving on to the 4th, 1968, Neil Cassidy, the great writer. 1975, Louis Jordan, the musician, songwriter, and band leader. 1983, Karen Carpenter, the great vocalist and drummer of the Carpenters. 1987, Liberace. 2005, Ozzie Davis. 2006, feminist Betty Friedan. 2009, Lux Interior of the band The Cramps. Saw them live a couple times. They were great. I always described their sound as 2 garbage trucks driving down a bumpy country road, banging into each other constantly with the garbage flying out. I think that's a pretty accurate representation of how the Cramps sounded, but some may take offense to that. That's okay. Moving on to the 5th, 1946, British actor George Arliss. Now, he was in a play called The Green Goddess here in San Francisco, and as a tribute to him in that play, they invented Green Goddess salad dressing at the Palace Hotel. True story. 1969, actor Thelma Ritter, All About Eve. Also coming back to All About Eve as well. 1993, the screenwriter Joseph L. Mankiewicz wrote All About Eve. Also directed movies. 2008, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the Indian guru who developed transcendental meditation. 2020, Kirk Douglas, who was an incredible actor and lived a very, very long life. Moving on to the 6th, 1918, the great artist Gustav Klimt. 1952, George VI, King of the United Kingdom, succeeded by Queen Elizabeth II. 1976, Vince Guaraldi, the jazz pianist and composer, did all music for the Peanuts cartoons. 1991, Danny Thomas, the actor. 1993, the tennis player Arthur Ashe. 2016, the American singer and songwriter Dan Hicks, of Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks. 2017, Professor Irwin Corey, a great comedian. Our hair is starting to look a little bit like his. Need to frizz it out a little bit more. On the 7th, 1871, Henry Steinway, a German piano manufacturer. Steinway pianos, yes indeed. Do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall? 1938, Harvey Firestone of the Firestone Tire Company. 1999, I'll get this right yet. Bobby Troup, American jazz pianist, composer, actor. He was on Emergency. I think he also composed Route 66, if I remember right. 2000, the magician Doug Henning. 2001, Dale Evans, actress, singer. Actor probably use gender-neutral terms. Of course, was married to Roy Rogers. 2001, speaking of famous wives who were also famous in their own right, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, she was an author and aviator, and the wife of Charles Lindbergh. 2009, Blossom Dearie, American jazz singer and pianist. 2020, Orson Bean, American actor and comedian. I believe he was on most recently on Curb Your Enthusiasm. 1587, as we discussed earlier, Mary Queen of Scots. Anybody ever hear the death of Mary Queen of Scots? Yar, Mary Queen of Scots, I am. Monty Python fans will get that one. 1994, somewhat obscure name, but if you're a fan of cartoons, Raymond Scott, the composer. His music was used quite a bit. He was quite innovative as well. You've heard his stuff, believe me. You've heard it. Look it up. 2007, Anna Nicole Smith. Moving on to the 9th, Dostoevsky, the Russian novelist of Crime and Punishment. 1966, Sophie Tucker, the last of the Red Hot Mamas, also famous for singing My Yiddish Mama, and made a guest appearance on the Weekend Edition. Go back and check that out. Sorry I don't have the episode number, but she may make another appearance someday, you never know. 1981, Bill Haley, arguably the father of rock and roll, sang Rock Around the Clock. 2002, Margaret Rose, Countess of Snowdon, sister of Queen Elizabeth II. Boy, Becky came up a lot today, huh? Well, for our quote today, we're going to do something a little bit different in tribute to Ashton Kutcher and Dude, Where's My Car?, the greatest movie ever made. We are going to reenact the Chinese food scene. So, wish us luck. Here we go. Chinese food, may I help you? Yeah, I'd like to place an order. What would you like? Yeah, I'd like 3 orders of garlic chicken. And then 3 orders of white rice. And then, you guys want soup? Sure. Yeah, 3 orders of wonton soup. And then, some fortune cookies too. And then, that's it. I think that's about it. And then, no, that's it. And then, that's all I want. And then there's nothing else because I'm done ordering, okay? And then, no, see, all I want is 3 orders of garlic chicken and 3 orders of white rice. And the soup, dude. Oh yeah, and wonton soup. And the fortune cookies. And the fortune cookies, yes, so it's just the chicken, the rice, the soup, the fortune cookies, that's it. And then you can put it in a brown paper bag and come put it in my hand because I'm ready to eat. And then, I refuse to play your Chinese food mind games. And then, no, and then, 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 you're really starting to piss me off, lady. And then, I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to put my foot in your ass if you say, and then again. And then. See the movie if you haven't seen it already. Well, on that note of silliness, that'll wrap it up for today. So remember, we accept donations. Here's where you can do that. We greatly appreciate all of our generous donors. You make this vlog possible. Also, if you'd like to make some comments or subscribe, well, that's down below as well. Want more information about the tours that the Countess and I will hopefully be doing soon. It's looking like things are going to start to open up maybe around March 1st, but we're thinking maybe mid-March, 1st of April, at least on our part. We'll see what the Countess does. There's where you find information about that. Well, until we see you again, stay safe and stay healthy. If you go outside, wear your mask, even if you had the vaccine. We still have to wear the masks for a while longer until this disappears, and hopefully it will sometime soon. A year under quarantine has been a bit much. Do not take unproven cures that might kill you, but most of all, be kind to one another. Things would be much better in this world if we were just a little bit more kind, wouldn't it be? Until we see you again, a gracious good day.